I wish I could feel it all for you. If I could, I would take back all that you've been through. And I would find a second place for you tonight. When you've come undone, I wish I could take the pain away. If I could, I would paint for you a brand new day. But
Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys. I want to introduce everybody. We got a lot of people up here. So Jonathan Hickory, based on a true story. This is his life. We've got the hero of the story, his wife, Stacy. I'm Tim Searfoss. I'm the director of the film. You know who this guy is. That's Ignacio Sterling. And then last but not least, we got Danny, who helped me co-write and co-produce the film. So first off, I think we should start with Jonathan. So Jonathan, tell us how true to life this story is, and tell us a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, I wanted to tell everybody that an announcement that I forgot to make in the beginning. We have some prayer team members in the back, so if anyone needs prayer, I know it's a powerful film, can invoke a lot of emotion. We do have some prayer team members back by the exit signs back here. So the question was, what was the question?
How true to the story, how the film is, and and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we really, Tim and Danny are the writers of the script, and they did a fantastic job of really keeping the story very true to the book. And the book is absolutely the true story. So I think, there were a few scenes that they took some
liberties with. We made Hollywood a little bit, but
yeah, some liberties with. But yeah, I'd say like 95% of the film is the way it really happened in real life.
So I know that a lot of people want to hear from you, Stacy. So tell us a little bit from your perspective, this journey that you went on, and where you're at now.
Yeah, so after the book was written, we really had to make sure that we were following God's plan. And this is all God. This whole entire book, movie, it is all God. And every person on this stage God has ordained them to be where they are. So I'm just going to stop there before I start crying. I didn't watch the movie because I didn't want to make up go everywhere. Anyway, this story for us is we live it every day of helping others, and we want to help as many first responders as possible. And my role as wife for helping first responders, for wives, it's every day, and there are so many first responders living this life, and they're living the lie that they can't talk to anyone, and we need to break that stigma. And I'm really hoping that this movie will do that for someone or lots of people. That would be nice. But for wives, we have a lot that we take at home from police officers or first responders of when they get home, and they just, sometimes they just give us a lot of their junk, and we don't know what to do with it. So for me personally, it's really nice to help other women, other wives that are going through this. Maybe not this exact story, but other things that first responders are going through. So, what else do I need to talk about?
No, that's good. That's good. So I was just going to tell you. Let me just share a little quick story, a little anecdotal story behind the scenes of making the movie. So, if you remember the scene where Ignacio is smashing up the garage. It's an emotional scene, and Ignacio's a pretty awesome actor, as you can tell. And to get kind of in the spirit of the filming, he goes outside, and he's like, "Okay, are you ready?" He's like, "Yeah, we're ready." So he goes outside, and we're at someone's house. This is a real house. We're borrowing it to film. And he goes out, and so to get in the moment, he gets that shovel. And he just starts pounding on the grass, just to get, like, what does it feel like to really get there, so that when I say action, he can come in and, like, he's in it, Acting, yeah. So he does this, right? And he does it, and he goes in, and unbeknownst to us, the actress, she wasn't in that scene, so she just casually walks outside, and she sees some guys making barbecue outside, and their eyes are like this big around, and they just watch him smash the grass, and then they go, "You need to leave that man." And then she's like, no, it's a movie. Yeah, Does he hurt you? So that was one of those great. They still didn't believe her. Like she kept saying, like, yeah, I don't think something doesn't add up here. So that's a little quick behind the scenes tip. So Ignacio, tell us about playing a real man. A real true story. What is that? What was that like as an actor, and also playing the police aspect of it?
So I'll answer the first part first, obviously. Playing a real person, there's a duplicity behind it, right? Because you get to play this great character that exists, so no one can tell you that whatever you're doing is wrong because this actually happened. That's the beauty of it. Now, the scary part of it is having the man that you're playing watch everything you do for about 18 days straight, constantly. Granted, I got to spend a lot of time with Jonathan, and me and Jonathan became very close. I consider Jonathan a very close friend of mine. We spoke a lot about faith, about just existence in general, just being good people, and I learned a lot about him from him, and I got to bring that into the character. And I tried to bring a lot of empathy into his cause, because to play a character like Jonathan, you could demonize and villain. You could play the villain very easily, and I think that's a cheap way of telling his story, and it wouldn't do it quite the justice that it deserves. Because at the end of the day, you have to find the humanity behind his actions and how he struggled and how he overcame that obstacle that obviously him and his wife, thank God, willingly did. So it was interesting. It was exciting. It was scary. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change it for the world. As to playing a police officer, so that was my first time playing a cop. I grew up with police officers in New York all my life. A lot of my friends are in the NYPD, so there's a few tics that I took from them. But then most of it was being on set. Once you put the uniform on, it kind of transforms you, Like, you watch your cop shows, you watch your movies, and there's a lot of things that, you can easily do wrong, like holding a gun, for example. That's a very obvious thing. There's a few takes where, I did this thing called teacupping, where I held the bottom of the gun, and they were like, no, that's every cop that watches this movie is going to kill you for doing that. And I was like, okay, I just got to make sure I get that right a couple times. So luckily, they were on top of that, which, made me feel great. But putting the uniform on, it does something. And the one thing that I learned about being a police officer while shooting this film was this inherent fear that you have every day going to work that you have to mask and get used to. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you have your badge, you have your gun, you have these responsibilities, and you're put in contact in the line of duty with danger, with circumstance that you quite don't know how to deal with, but you have to make a decision in a split second, and all this pressure, and somehow you just got to let it go and just forget about it and just act like a person and hope to God that you make the right decision when the time comes. And so that's the most interesting thing, is how law enforcement officers, anybody that's a first responder, can take that feeling and suppress it. And it goes back to the whole theme underlying the story, right? We have officers that are scared to get help, people that feel that they're weak by showing this vulnerability to talk, to share their emotions. And I hope that this film will help a lot of people feel that it's okay to go and get help, to talk about their problems, to know that they're not alone. Hopefully that answers your question.
So one of the things about this story, as me as a director, and Danny and I co-wrote the movie, and one of the things about this is that it takes a lot of courage to write what he wrote in his book about his life, you know, and to be that brutally honest about, hey, this is what actually happened. That's scary, and I feel like as Christians, we don't usually do that. We kind of like tend to sugarcoat it a little bit, and the fact that he went there, you know, he went there and he just told it like it was. And that was a conscious decision that we had to make also in making the film. I said, you know, if we don't tell the story like it was, for instance, he became a Christian and he still drank, you know? And I remember when we wrote the script, somebody read it and they said, well, wait a minute, he can't still be drinking after he becomes a Christian, you know? And it's like, well, that's what happened, you know, because it's a process, it's a journey, you know? And seeing that journey play out lets people understand, look, this isn't like a pill, you know, like that you just take and it's a fairy tale and it all gets better. You made decisions and you made bad decisions, and now you're gonna have to like pick up the pieces, you know? So it's a journey and all of that. And I feel like that's what kind of sets this film apart, his story apart, you know, from other people. And I feel like that's what we were setting out to do, is to say, hey, look, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. And that's what God's there for, is to help us pick the pieces back up, you know, and get us on the right track, you know?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you feel that now that you're doing a faith-based film, did you find that there were any limitations doing a faith-based film in contrast to what would be a secular film?
Oh yeah, well, there's a lot of limitations, and I mean, honestly, the alcohol was a question. You know, I wasn't quite sure. I know that as Christians, we try to not watch things that, you know, don't please God. You know, but the thing is that to understand the darkness, you know, to understand how bright and shining God is, you have to show how dark the world is, you know, to be able to contrast that. Because if you had a story where he just never drank and, you know, maybe said a curse word and then he becomes a Christian, you're like, well, big whoop-de-doo, you know, like not much happened. But now when you see this, like, man, it went dark, and then seeing the redemption makes it so much stronger. Look what God really took this guy from the bottom and brought him back out. And it's just amazing. I mean, you see it in a film, but this is a true story, you know, that really happened. So let me pass now to Sterling. So Sterling, tell me, is there anything you learned during the making of the film that maybe you didn't know before?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing is, I didn't know that first responders was dealing with this. You know, I didn't know that it was higher suicide rate. You know, it was more, you know, I guess death from suicide than being out in the field. And you know, just shooting this film just made me respect what law enforcement, what you guys do day in and day out. I wasn't even a real cop, right? But just doing everything in just full uniform with the belt and the bulletproof vest, you know, I felt like I was at football practice, right? Like seriously, like shooting like 6 hours in that stuff. But, you know, just seeing that stuff, you know, every day or every other day or whenever, I mean, that definitely affects you guys. And I just have so much respect for all first responders. But the thing about this movie, even though, yeah, we really want to, I guess push this out to first responders and let you guys know everything is okay. But, you know, this movie is potentially just bigger than that. I mean, this is for anybody that's experienced loss, things of that nature. So this movie can go really far, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. So.
Awesome. And so Fajardo over here. Danny, talk to us about maybe some of the things that you learned, and maybe something about the filming. What do you want to tell us, or writing?
Well, watching it this last time, I just realized how poetic the film was in terms of how, like, the music and the cinematography and all the aspects and stuff like that. And so I really appreciate what you did and what you brought to the table. And I also want to talk tell Ignacio, and I know I've told you multiple times, but see, like being on set and then working and seeing Ignacio come into character, I've never met an actor that you could go, we're going to do a scene where you have to cry, and he goes, okay, hold on. And he comes back like 2 seconds later, and then it's not just one time. It's
guys, get ready. He's crying already. You better shoot.
It's not one time. It's like 5 takes in a row, and you're like, did he just like stab him in his eye or something? Like I just don't know how he does it. Anyway, but also I want to say, like the bravery of telling your story. You guys both. It's not just you, Jonathan, Stacy. I mean, people are seeing what real Christianity is when they see how you could forgive your husband. You know what I mean? And Jonathan, man, like both of you guys, the bravery of putting it down so people pick up from it, they can learn from it, And I think that's one of the beautiful things about doing this type of film. There's a lot of different lessons in there. Hearing sometimes I smirk when I hear like some of Pastor Gabe's lines, because I'm like, man, he was hard on him. Good. He needed that, So that's some of it. I don't know, I ramble a lot. So that's why they give me the mic last.
That was good. Stacy, I know that as a lot of women who would see this and know what happened, they would have a hard time with the, wait, you forgave him? Hold up. I would have left, So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was not easy. When you've been married for a long, long time, which I would consider a long time.
17 years now.
Yeah, 17 years. You kind of know what's on your husband's heart. You know what's on your spouse's heart. If they've had a bad day, you know it. If they've had a good day, you know it. And Jonathan was just going through this spiraling downward path, and I didn't really put it out there. I didn't tell a lot of people about it because I don't want to share all of our business. God's funny. And, I just prayed a lot. And I will have to say that women, the first question I get is, why did you stay with him? And they're angry with me. That's fine. They can be angry. But I knew that his issues had nothing to do with me. It was the past, and he's suppressing and didn't deal with trauma from years before we even met. And you know that as a spouse. You know that there are things that are deep down that you don't want to talk about. And the death of his father was one of those things. And we just had to work that out. And I'm a big advocate for going to see faith-based counselors because you got to be real. You got to be real. And the scene where Jonathan's talking to the empty chair and he's talking to his dad, I mean, that happened in real life. That was real. That was a double session. And that made me realize here's this broken man who's carrying almost 30 years of shame and guilt from when he was a kid. And then I started thinking about all of my students that I've had who are just carrying things they shouldn't be carrying. You don't carry that. You give that over. And we had to work that out. And it was a work in progress. Don't get me wrong. Like there were some days I was pretty PO'd. But we had to work on it. What do you want to say?
So the scene in the movie where she's got a laundry basket and she's walking through the hallway, and then Ignacio or me or the lead character in the movie comes up to his wife and says, oh, well, let me help you with that, and she says, don't touch me. Like, I mean, that really happened. Like, that's reality. Like, we were in a crisis. We were in a complete storm, and it is a miracle that we pulled through, but it's because we turned to God. And because we turned to God, and because I had a repentant heart, and because she was willing to forgive. I mean, she biblically had every right to walk away from me. And I realized that I don't deserve the forgiveness or the grace. But she chose to forgive, and because of that, our marriage is now stronger than it's ever was before. And we've been given the gift of 2 beautiful children since that time. So now we have 3 wonderful children. I don't know if you got to see, at the end there, where there's the baby and everything. But we're just so blessed to have the redemption that we have, and it definitely took a lot of work. But it's just because of the forgiveness.
Tim, so how was it working and collaborating with all these actors and doing this? This is your first debut film, so just wanted to...
Yes, this is my first feature film. I've done, a lot of filming obviously before, but dealing with the actors. Okay, where do we start? Let's start with Dean Cain. He used to be Superman. As many of you know, he used to be Superman. What's he like? He's awesome. He's a class act. He shows up, very professional, super fun person, makes the set very, very fun. And obviously, it's hard to work with him because everybody wants pictures with him. So that makes it tough. Working with Ignacio here, I'll pass on the question. And then working with Ignacio. Every time I work with actors, I learn a lot. From the craft about filmmaking. I had a chance to work with Dean Cain in the past, and I remember first working with him, how much I learned just by watching him and what he did and the choices he made. And I feel like working with Ignacio was, first of all, he could read my mind. It was crazy. There were moments there that you see in the film. He's in that state, and it looks easy when you see it, but, in real life, when you're there and, there's people watching you, and there's lights and it's like, okay, dude, I need you to go, I need you to go here, and when he goes there, it gives you goosebumps. You're watching it, and it's like it's a dance, and he's dancing and I'm dancing, and we both are dancing the same song, and it was for me, it was such a beautiful experience to work with a great collaborator like Ignacio, and like what he's saying about the crying is totally true. I have never met anybody in my entire life who can just be like, I need you to cry. Okay, go. What? Wait, no, not now. I'm not even set up. That happened a lot, actually. But anyway, and then working with Sterling, man, that guy's grumpy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, he was great. He's a trooper, man. They were wearing, it was hot. They're wearing these, it doesn't look like much, but man, it's heavy. All that gear they have on, which by the way, one of the things you don't know because you're not cops is that to go to the bathroom is like a process. It's like they have to take a bunch of stuff off. It takes it takes a while. So anyway, I had Mr. Sterling over here. There's that scene where they're at the junkyard and they have to get out of the car and you hear the gunshots, and Sterling has to get out and bend down, and I'm like, okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. He's like, I feel like I'm at football practice. Yeah, so it was anyway, he was a trooper. He went with it, What's that? Oh yeah, so by the way, Christian is not here because she is at Miss USA pageant for West Virginia. The West Virginia pageant. So she would have made it had it not been today, literally. But Christian was amazing too. Her perspective, she did talk to Stacy and they talked about, and one of the things that she would like for me, with me telling you guys, is that she was one of the persons who asked Stacy, hey, like, how could you do that? How could you really do that? And it was, I feel like one of those things that usually, if you do a film, if you're just doing a comic book movie or something, you're not going to be affected, by your character and all that. But when you're doing this, all of us were genuinely affected by their life stories and by what really happened, and here we are acting out the scenes that actually happened. And it's hard to describe, I mean, I know there were scenes where, for example, when he's talking to the chair, in the other room, I call cut, and this guy's bawling, in the other room, and I know it was very hard for them to go through that. But yeah, I learned so much from these guys, especially this one right here.
Well, back to Christian. She's a very generous actress. She gives you more than she needs to. So there was takes where, obviously when you have the camera set up, you have different angles and you have different coverage. So when you're shooting her coverage, I will be there giving her my lines for her to react off of, and she does the same. And she would give me the same 300% amped up performance for my coverage every time. And she was really kind about that, very sweet, very generous. She's very smart. She's written books. She's won awards. She's really going places. And it's funny because she just kind of fell into acting, right? It wasn't kind of like one of those things that she wants to pursue. She's a natural. She's very good. She's very, very talented.
So, Hickory, can you talk a little bit about first responders and the mental health aspect,
Sure. So one of the things that Sterling mentioned earlier is the police suicides. And, this actually, as a police officer, I've been a police officer for 18 years, and I had no idea for many, many years of my career that police suicide and firefighter suicide was such a problem. More officers, more first responders die at their own hand, taking their own life, than in the line of duty. And that's just flooring. But I understand it now, and now I think that I know why I was called to write this book and tell my story, because there's so many first responders out there, officers, firefighters, EMS, dispatchers, that have this heavy burden, vicarious trauma, the trauma of others every day, compounded with the trauma in their own lives. I mean, certainly Stacy and I had lots of trauma in our life with the loss of our son, and then I had the loss of my father. So trauma doesn't care if you're wearing a uniform or not. Trauma is trauma. And if you don't resolve it, if you don't face it in healthy ways, it will destroy your life.
So now, just for a couple minutes, we'd like to open the floor. If you guys have any questions or anything, we'd love to answer if you guys have any questions. So just, I guess, raise your hand and we'll call you. No questions? Okay, good. We're all good to go. Yes, sir.
Where was it filmed?
Yes, it was, go ahead. You do it.
So the film was filmed in West Virginia, Bridgeport, West Virginia primarily, also Shinston, West Virginia, and Clarksburg, West Virginia.
That's mostly because it's easier to get police department collaboration, because obviously, as you can see, all those cars are real, all those uniforms are real. First day of me showing up right before filming is like, okay, let's go look at the uniforms, and then we walk into the police station and we go upstairs and there's the police uniforms. I'm like, what? You can take any of them. Okay, so all of it is authentic, real. That's it's all yeah. That's all somebody over here. Yeah.
Okay, so the question was, we lived it. Stacy and I lived it. I wrote about it, and then we made it into a movie. And what's that been like to kind of be living in that process? Is that correct? Okay, so I think for me it was just a sense of God laying it on my heart. I started attending a men's Bible study as part of my healing and recovery process, and they prayed me through all this stuff. Through me not wanting to tell my wife, my sins against her, through the crisis we went through, and through the restoration and the birth of our son, and now our newest daughter Hope, and there was a brother in my men's group, and these guys are just we pray over each other's lives and we do life together. And there was a brother that prayed me through all this stuff, and his name is Cornell Smith, and he said, hey, brother, I feel like you're going to write a book, and I'm like, whatever, dude, I feel like you're smoking crack, because, I'm a cop. I don't know if you noticed or not, but like we put the least amount of pen to paper as possible. We hate writing reports. And when we do write reports, we're supposed to just keep it to the facts. So the creative aspect is left out of it. They don't want our opinion or anything in the reports because that can show bias and things like that. So we just report the facts. But you know, God really laid it on my heart when he spoke those words. And so I just felt like it was a calling on my life. I didn't understand why I was doing it. I didn't know about the police suicides. I thought I was the only one. I thought that I was weak somehow. You know, I thought that there was something wrong with me, that I was struggling with all the scenes, you know, on duty, all the flashbacks and the nightmares. You know, I was convinced it was just me. But I was obedient and I wrote the book not understanding why. And then God started to use it. And our prayer from the beginning has been that God would be glorified through the telling of this story. And we tried to pursue making it a movie once the book came out, and it wasn't going anywhere. I even reached out to Sony Affirm Films, and they said, yeah, you know, we don't really just make movies out of books, so like, go do it yourself. But God opened the door to make it happen. We started praying that if God wanted to use the story in that way, that he would do it. And he did it. We didn't have to do anything. We just followed his lead. So to live this, you know, it's amazing because we get to, you know, officers come to me all the time behind the scenes, and officer wives come to Stacy behind the scenes saying, this is our life too. You know, they don't want to be loud and proud about it, and I get that. You know, it's very private stuff. But there's so many first responders out there that are suffering in silence, and so it's really going to help them. It's amazing. Did you want to add anything to that?
Ditto.
Ditto, she says. Thank you. Great question.
Brother Jonathan, you should, like you said, you shared your story with us. You shared it in church as well. But what about with your? I got two questions. Will you have you, or will you allow your children to see this film? Watch it, read the book?
Yeah. So what's the other question?
The other question is, where does the film go from here? Because my neighbors were asking. I guess they're afraid.
So the first question is, you know, will you allow your children to see this film and read the book and stuff like that? And to answer that question, you know, my daughter, our daughter Anna, is only 11, and you know, of course, Zachariah's 4.5, and Hope is only a year. But you know, when the time is right, you know, absolutely. I don't think it's right to hide it from them. I think they need to know that this is part of their parents' story and how they came to be for some of them. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to be truthful with them about it, but we're going to make sure that they're mature and ready enough to receive it.
His daughter's in the movie, actually. She's the one where at the beginning where mom is telling him that dad is sick and that he's not going to make it. The little girl there that's got the tears, amazing performance, that's his daughter. And she did amazing. She was phenomenal, yeah. And Hickory is actually in the movie a lot more than you think he is. So he's, I don't know, he's probably 5? Yeah, I know you probably spot him in the ice cream scene, but he's also the fireman. So that was one of the things. And
I always wanted
he's
to
at
be
the
a
bar.
fireman.
You can see his back. He's at the bar, and he was the dead body with no shoe. It was okay. I guess this sounds not funny, but.
So the other part of that question was, where do you see the film going from here? Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we have signed with a distributor, and so within the next, you know, probably end of the summer, early fall, it should be coming out on all your favorite streaming platforms, as well as DVD and Blu-ray. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to use it as a ministry tool in churches whenever we can.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that and brag on God, because this film has been out now, and we put it into film festivals, and it's won 5 Best Inspirational Film Awards at different film festivals. And 6, okay. And you know, 2 for Best Actor for Ignacio, and 1 for Best Debut Director. So the film has been places I haven't been to. You know, it went to India, Prague, Paris, London, Vegas. I've been there. I've been there before when I wasn't a Christian. It wasn't that good. Anyway.
Okay, any more questions? I didn't look up high. Is there anybody? Okay. Oh, we got one more. Okay.
How did the two of you find the director?
That's a story in itself. Would you like to tell that one, Tim?
Sure. So I was working on a film with Dean Cain, and I was a little bummed because I was directing it, and I didn't get to talk to him very much because I'm working, and I had prayed, God, open the door for me to be able to talk to this guy. He's legit. And anyway, we got done filming, and he left, and I didn't hear anything from him again. 6 months later, this producer calls me up, and he says, "Hey, I talked to Dean Cain. Dean Cain said, I need to talk to you, that you would make a good film for me." I was like, "Wait, what?" So I said, "Okay," and then he tells me, he's got this Break Every Chain movie, and I said, "Well, that sounds exactly like the kind of movie I'd want to make. It's a real story, with real emotions, and it's not like sugar coated, and it helps people, and it's a great cause, And I said, "Sign me up," So it was totally God is actually the answer.
To add to that, though, real quick, they also took there was another script for it. They completely rewrote it in about a week because we had to get it done for the film schedule that we had coming up. And they hit a home run out of the park, took it where it needed to be in a week. I mean, it's unheard of. So God's had his hand on the whole thing, It's just amazing.
There's no question that God has been part of the process. It's one of those things where you're working in it, and then sometimes you get to the other end, and you're like, "Oh, that was God helping us. Okay, I see that huge pitfall that I didn't fall into. He actually steered me away, and I didn't realize it till right now." I mean, for me, there's a couple things. So, for instance, if you remember, there's a scene where he delivers the news to the motorcycle family, and there's this shot where the windows and you see the people, and you see him, and he's kind of center framed, and it's kind of orangey. I had imagined that exactly like it was, and I storyboarded it exactly like it was. And we get there, and I see the house, and I just said, "Thank you, Lord. You gave me the house I wanted." Out of all the houses in West Virginia, there aren't very many houses that have that, big space that you can film like that nowadays, So that's just one tiny example, but it was just countless examples that, of that happening. I think, yeah.
Will you share your story when you went to Arizona for your premiere and how God beat the cops?
Oh, yeah. So the question was, will you share your story about when you went to Tempe, Phoenix, Arizona, and we had the world premiere there. And just a very quick snippet of a story is that I had just arrived, and I'm like, whoa, I've never been to Arizona before, and there's palm trees, and that's weird. And it's really hot. And I went to go get some breakfast. And I was like, well, Starbucks, because that's what I know. But then I saw a Einstein's Bagels or something like that. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Let me go there. And I pulled in and, saw two guys sitting, having coffee together at a table. And I'm like, well, that's weird. They look kind of like tough guys, and it's weird that they're sitting at that tiny table. And then I walked right past them. I went in and I got my coffee and stuff. I came back out, and one of them is a fully uniformed police officer, and the other one had a gun on too. He was a detective, and for some reason I never noticed that. I think it was because
he's a cop too, So
all the palm trees, and the new bagel place, But I was like, well, I need to tell these guys, maybe they're local, about this premiere. And I went to go speak to them, and it turns out that it was the deputy chief of the department for a huge Tempe Police Department. It's huge. And so he had a lot of influence in his department, and he asked me to email him the details, and just a God opened the door for me to be able to meet those guys in that moment.
Well, thank you guys. We really enjoyed you guys seeing the film. Thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you guys, and we'll be out back in the lobby if you want to talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord. We say thank you, Lord. What a faithful God you are. We say thank you. We say thank you. Oh, I'm not losing hope.